Bragsy was a Bear fanatic raised in Chicagoland. And Mitchell from Des Plaines told me is a big Trubisky fan. So he rushed him down to see a doctor. Hey doctor, please check his head. The only thing that was wrong with him was good old number 10. Cause Brags loves Mitch Trubiskys, and it'll kill him dead. Oh yeah. I heard him talking to Waddle and Sylvie on the radio. Chris Black and Adam Abdallah would kick him off the show. Cause he's always talking about Trubisky. Hey, you gotta let it go. 4 years of pain and suffering's gonna put him 6 feet below. Cause Brags loves Mitch Trubiskys, and he's gotta go. Take a tip from me, old pal, buddy, can't you see? Ain't no future in that Mitch Trubisky. We're gonna take him to a team of doctors, and they're all gonna shake their heads. The only thing they're gonna tell him to stop cheering for old number 10. Give up on Mitch Trubiskys. Won't you do that now?
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of the Mitchell Trubisky era as we know it, the end of the Chicago Bears season.
It's for the best.
We can say it's fairly confident that that's the end of the Mitchell Trubisky season. And now the bigger questions go to one, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. It seemed Matt Nagy's job was close to being saved. But I don't know. After today, now things have come back to the fray, you know, losing 2 in a row to the Packers and Saints. They had seemed to get some things on track against some lesser opponents, but couldn't put it together ultimately against the top echelon teams. And that's, you know, that's what you have to have if you want to win a Super Bowl. And the Bears don't have enough to do that, even though they were able to find their way to making the playoffs this year. So I am your host, Gregory Braggs Jr., formerly known as King Truther, and I think we have finally laid that to bed. And this is my co-host, graphic designer, and super producer extraordinaire, Jacob Ovanik. And this is Braggs in the Stands post-game show, playoff post-game show, our first ever playoff post-game show. And of course, it comes in a beatdown. So we started early because I know the game was still finishing up, but no miracle comeback here.
We got to get these press conferences. I got to hear what the excuses are, because that was pathetic.
We're going to be getting to Matt Nagy coming to the podium here in a little bit, and we've already got some people in the chat, and I want to shout out my guy Al Fleischman. He was the guy that put together our Mitch Trubiskys song. He's known for his Waddle and Sylvie parody song entries, and there's his name and Twitter handle at the bottom. He does a lot of great work, and he's been helping us out here at Braggs and Stands, putting together some fun songs. And of course, yes, I was known for my love for one Mitchell Trubisky, and it has been a fun ride. You know, this morning I shared a picture of me and Mitch at training camp, his first day ever at training camp. And, he won me over early. I certainly was a person that didn't want to draft him initially. I was one of those fans booing at the moment of the draft when we didn't.
Yeah, me too.
Deshaun Watson. I mean, anybody that's just a surface college football fan knew Deshaun Watson was a great player, and they chose to go with Mitchell Trubisky over Deshaun Watson. And once upon a time, all three of these
made a good dinner reservation. He was Jim McMahon.
Pro Bowl as crazy as that. Yeah, as crazy as that picture looks, they actually were all in a Pro Bowl once, but of course Mitch got in through the back door of that as well.
He was an alternate,
yeah, as they made the playoffs this same way, backdooring it. And now you're hearing all this talk about Deshaun Watson wanting to leave the Texans, but we can get all to that stuff later. But ultimately what I'm saying is, I wanted Deshaun initially, and then, when Mitch came to camp that first year, he definitely won me over. He was somebody that worked hard. He had a different attitude than Jay Cutler. That was what I wanted to see in our leader, and I thought he had the intangibles to be a good quarterback in this league. And then 2018 was by far and away, since the Super Bowl run of the 2006 Bears, my favorite team that I have experienced as a Bears fan. Club dub and everything that 2018 team was will always hold a special place in my heart. Always, even the way it ended, as bad as it was with the double doink that Jake and I had to witness in person. And it wasn't easy. It's Bears history and not the good history you want to see. But I always felt like from that moment that they were going to get to the top of the mountain. I felt like they had the team and the right guys in place to do that. I liked Matt Nagy at that time. I liked what this defense brought to the table. I liked a guy like Eddie Jackson. I liked Mitchell Trubisky going into his third and fourth year. And all of this has fallen completely off the tracks since the double doink. Again, they were managed to make the playoffs this season, but it's obviously been an extremely ugly season, and they added an extra team in each conference, so you can play even uglier football and manage to make the playoffs now in this format. So
what else could you lose 6 straight games and still make the playoffs?
Right. And this is the new NFL. This is probably, you'll see more of that now that more teams are making the playoffs, and the Bears were the first beneficiary to that. But you can't change what you're seeing with your eyes, and that's what brings me to what I want to talk about tonight personally. And Jake, you're free to talk about whatever you want. We can get into what we saw in this game. I thought the Bears had plenty of missed opportunities.
I'm just going to tear everybody apart. I mean, that's why I'm here.
That's where I'm at with you. I'm back to the fold with you.
I've never left.
To give these guys, you may have never left, and maybe rightfully so. I did feel like it was worth a puncher's chance in the playoffs to give these guys an opportunity to win one more year.
Well, it was a little bit of fool's gold too, that they did start putting together some really good offensive performances, but they were against bottom defenses, and everyone was trying to weigh, is that because of their competition? Is that them showing a resurgence? But now it's seeming a lot more likely that it was because it was against garbage opponents. And, it's baffling. It's I was so disappointed in the play calling today that not that I'm some genius, but it's just like some of these decisions, like you get the ball back, you get in the second quarter before the half, you run 3 straight times, you kick it away, you get the ball, you're going to get the ball back to start the half. And it's just, this again, just like we talked about with the Packers game, it was like, what do you have to lose? Go for it, ball out, go crazy. Okay, good. Well, they didn't do it. Right. Then you come here and you're like, okay, well now you're not even supposed to be here. Go crazy, have fun, leave it all on the line. And they didn't do it again. It's like I think it's in a good way, although the Bears didn't quite deserve it. It's good that they made it into the playoffs.
As Jimmy Graham scores a touchdown with time expiring, Mitch Trubisky threw Jimmy Graham a touchdown as time expired, and Jimmy literally scored the touchdown, got up, and walked right out into the funnel to end the game as time expires. So the Bears are going to lose 20-9 or 20-10 if they kick the extra point. But go ahead and finish your thought, Jake. I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, I just kind of lost my train of thought for a second.
No,
but
it's just like the timidness. Calling.
Yeah, it's like the timidness. Again, it's like you had nothing to lose, and you come out and you just put together a performance like this. And what I was saying was, I'm glad that they got this playoff opportunity because it's a little bit more evaluation, I think, for a guy like George McCaskey to see what your team has done against 2 top opponents the past 2 weeks. And they got another opportunity to evaluate them today. And what you're seeing is not good. And it's like, why would I feel confident rolling these guys back out here next year? I mean, in terms of head coach or, defensive coordinator or Ryan Pace, it's like, what do you feel good about? Because what's the direction now? What are they doing? What is the plan? Because your quarterback fell apart. You got a lot of defensive heavy contracts. You don't have a lot of money to work with. You have to start over again at quarterback. You're not sure if the guy that you brought here to call plays and make you like the Chiefs had to give play calling away because he was so bad.
Right.
It's like,
and that was the only reason, because if not for that, Nagy, there would be no chance Nagy's coming back next year, which is and Mitch coming back. You can say that, he came back to what he always has been here these last 2 games, but the bottom line is they went from averaging like 13 points a game to 28 points a game and 200 yards of offense to 400 yards of offense. And that is the only reason they backdoored their way in. Well, two reasons. They backdoored their way in because they beat some bad teams with Mitch and Bill Lazor, not Matt Nagy calling the plays, and Arizona Cardinals falling apart. But that's a part of the game. I'm not, I don't think the Bears or Mitch should have apologized that the Cardinals fell apart. They had to play 16 games just like the Bears did. They didn't get in. But when they get in, like you say, it's just embarrassing to see how scared, before the second half, they have the 2-minute drill to try to make some plays, and the Saints are trying to bait them in to passing it. They call a timeout on first down when the Bears ran the ball, almost saying, let's see you go for it because you're going to throw an incomplete pass and we're going to get the ball back and score. But you can't be scared in that moment. You can't let Sean Payton intimidate you to the locker room to take your 7-3 deficit at the half. You got to try some things. House money, that's what I thought we were playing with today. And they, went back and went into their shell. The Javon Wims touchdown drop was the moment of the game for the Bears. And it annoys me as a fan that they can open it up and throw one to the sidelines to Wims, then throw dial up the trick play, deep ball to Wims. He drops it, and then we go into a shell. Keep playing aggressive. I know that sounds easier said than done and all that, but it's the truth. That's how I see it as a fan. And they just completely went into a shell. Granted, the Saints are a good team. You have to give them some credit. They shut down
them. I mean, that's the thing. Like a lot of people, and us included, have been pretty hard on Chuck Pagano. But look, he was the only one that had his guys ready to play today in this playoff game, and they played a good game. If you look at how much they were on
with the preface of the offsides discipline when it's 3rd and 5.
Sure. That's Eddie Jackson mental error, right?
There's a couple guys that did it today. And it like, to me, that's
I'm not giving him a pass.
The defense did show up, but that discipline showed up a couple times. That frustrated.
But here's the other thing. Look at the discipline across the board for everybody else. Look at you have another Anthony Miller who probably rightfully so is not going to be a Bear anymore. This guy comes out and swings on the same guy that Javon Wims swung on in week 8. He gets kicked out. The discipline isn't there, and then it's just a complete mess.
And that's what leads me to the conversation that I really want to focus on now. And we got to get back to beating the drum and putting some pressure on George McCaskey to clean house here. Why? It is the smartest thing to do here.
It is time.
Matt Nagy. You can give him all the credit in the world for giving up the play sheet and letting Bill Lazor basically carry his water into the playoffs. But then that means Matt Nagy should be in charge of everything else that's going on in the team, which means discipline management. And when we played it on the show on Friday, Gardner Johnson had already baited, Javon Wims in the previous game, and John Boyd made a great fight breakdown to it, and hee ho ho. But you can't tell me they didn't talk about this going into the week, that Gardner Johnson is someone that's an antagonizer. He does this to everybody. He does it to everybody. And
Miller talked about it not being, to be aware of this dude. He literally talked about it to the media, and then he's the one that throws the punch. So it's just like,
right. And that's a direct reflection of the head coach and not having his team properly disciplined. And I add the offsides, snafus. They had a couple of them on 3rd and 5s. One was on 4th and 1, and it almost looked like they got the Bears, but it was called a false start. It was on the punt, and it was on 4th and 2, and they called a false start instead of offsides. But I was telling Jenny, my wife, we were sitting here, and I go, I don't care how hard they fire off the ball. You cannot jump in that situation. Let them punt the ball. Quit, and that's the kind of stuff right there that falls on Matt Nagy. So now you're, as a fan, playoffs are over. Okay, the dream is dead. Everybody, and Mitch is gone. That's step one. The second step now is Ryan Pace, because all eyes are going to be on Ryan Pace.
Ryan Pace needs to be gone.
Yeah, how do you trust him to be in the quarterback evaluation room going into next season when it's obvious they have to acquire a quarterback? It's some round here in this draft, and maybe possibly a veteran if you choose not to keep Nick Foles, which I would not. And that's then you get to Matt Nagy. if you're telling me he gave up the play sheet and the play calls and he can't do that, he can't keep his team disciplined. He has an direct example of Gardner Johnson and Javon Wims getting thrown out of a game, and then Anthony Miller does the exact same thing to this exact same player, and he's doing the exact same move. It makes no sense. A real player on a team is going to get back at Gardner Johnson by burning him and scoring in the end zone. Javon Wims has his opportunity, and it goes right through his hands in his breadbasket. You know, people want to ask, where are these guys? Where's Javon Wims? Where's Riley Ridley? How come these guys aren't getting snaps? Javon gets some snaps today. Darnell Mooney hasn't played, and it goes right through his breadbasket. Darnell Mooney this year, a 5th-round pick out of Tulsa, playing with 2 quarterbacks that obviously don't fit the bill with Mitch and Nick Foles. And Darnell Mooney had a hell of a rookie season, right? So what's the excuse for these other guys? What's the excuse? Because Darnell Mooney's doing it out of the 5th round from Tulsa with Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky struggling to get the football out vertically. So, you know, Javon Wims, you got one go through your breadbasket. That's why you guys get paid the big bucks. When I go out and lay my bricks, they're expected to be laid to the line straight, and every single one I put in. So I know what it's all about when it comes to expectations when you come to your job. That's right. So it is what it is, man. And I feel bad. I wanted this team to overcome the odds of, or overcome the failure and the misery of what that double dunk was. They've had 2 cracks at it. And to me, if you're going into next season with Matt Nagy as a lame duck coach, because you're obviously not going to extend him. So if you're just going to bring him back with 1 year left on his deal, Mitch is gone. So, you know, you can argue that's for better, but we saw how it was with Nick Foles in there. Nick Foles has a player option, which he most certainly will pick up. So then if you're telling me Matt Nagy is back, is he going to vouch for Nick Foles to be back again like he vouched for him to come to the Bears this season? Because I'm cutting Nick Foles. That's a waste of time. You will lose every game you play with Nick Foles. So then you got to hope they draft a quarterback in the 1st round. Well, where are they picking now, Jake?
Maybe.
20, 21, 22. So we're talking about a guy that may not be ready to play out the gate. You saw the Packers drafted a quarterback at the back end of the 1st round. You know, they've got Aaron Rodgers, but he's the guy that may not have been ready to play if had he, been on a different team other than Aaron Rodgers. I'm just saying, at the back end of the 1st round, that might be the 4th or 5th quarterback taken off the board, and he might be a project, just like Mitch was a project.
Sure.
So how are you going to have Matt Nagy in a 1-year deal? And this is my long-winded point to it is, how are you going to – Matt Nagy's just going to have a losing season next season with a rookie that's not ready to play and Nick Foles. So that's where I go to. If you're just going to get a new GM and you're going to get rid of Mitch, you might as well just wipe the slate completely clean, George McCaskey, and get a GM in here. Get a president of football operations in here, as Sylvie has been beating the drum to. Let him pick the GM. Let the GM pick the head coach, and then let the GM, head coach, and president of football operations all come together and figure out this quarterback situation. And go and draft a quarterback in the 1st or 2nd round. Go cut Nick Foles and sign a veteran quarterback to back him up, and then go find a undrafted free agent rookie quarterback to be your 3rd-string quarterback and start developing these guys. And while you're at it, draft some tackles, draft some freaking cornerbacks.
Do everything.
You got to do it. And that's where we're at. We're into the offseason now immediately. We're going to hear from Matt Nagy here. We're going to hear from Mitchell Trubisky, which may be the final time we hear from either of these guys in a post-game presser, but certainly for Mitchell Trubisky. And like I said, it's a disappointment. I always want to see my teams that, that core, any core, figure it out and get to the mountaintop. That's the goal. But in sports, you only get so long. College, you get 4 years. And the pros, it doesn't really last more than 4 years typically for any team's window, good or bad. So this team was middle of the road. I know some people are pulling their hair out over the last 3 years because we didn't get Patrick Mahomes, and I know how much of a disappointment that was. But I don't forget the John Fox era. I don't forget those final few years with Mark Trestman and Jay Cutler and guys that didn't give a shit, and Brandon Marshall and Martellus Bennett fighting everyone in the locker room. These guys here these last 3 years, while it's been frustrating and not good enough to win in the playoffs, they have battled. They have had 3 straight years where they've got 12 wins, 8 wins, 8 wins. That's not good enough, but it's certainly a raised bar from what we had prior to these guys coming in. So I will give them credit that they have raised the expectation level in this city for the team, the franchise, and the fan base. But now it's on to try to find greener pastures. You can't be afraid that you won't find those greener pastures. You got to try. When people crossed the ocean for the first time ever to go find America, they didn't worry about if they were going to get there or not. They just did it. So you got to just put all your
Well, they were looking for India, a passage to India.
Exactly.
Whatever we're looking for. It was kind of an accident.
Whatever we're looking for, you just got to go. You got to push yourself off the shore and go find the next one. And you got to do it with a clean slate. If you come back here with Matt Nagy next year, and as much as I don't hate Matt Nagy, I just feel like it's a cleaner vision and direction for this franchise to wipe the slate clean and start from the top. As we were talking about when this team was at 5 wins and looked like they were going to lose out. They lucked their way into the playoffs. We had a little fun. We made a few jokes, but let's get back to the seriousness of fixing this franchise for good instead of arguing every day as Bears fans. So that's where I'm at.
You got to blow it up because, I mean, what do you do? I mean, if you bring back Pace and you bring back Nagy and you know you don't have a quarterback and you know that you're tight on the cap and, you know, these guys are going to know that, hey, you know, Ryan and Nagy, you're back. Now you have to prove something. You have to win next year. Well, how are you going to win next year without even a quarterback on your roster that you trust? So what are you going to do? You're going to go get Marcus Mariota? Are you going to get, I don't even know if he's available. Are you going to go get Ryan Fitzpatrick? Are you going to go get some other dude and get him and just throw him out there and say, this is how we're competing with the roster we still have and let's go for it? That seems very improbable that that's going to win a guy or that's going to prolong someone's life here as a coach. So it doesn't make any sense. Like you said, it's the perfect time to cut bait because Ryan has made some nice acquisitions in the mid rounds. Roquan was a good first round pick, even though they weren't trying. I don't know if linebacker was something you needed to take at 10th overall necessarily, but he's a good player.
They wanted Quentin Nelson, but
right, that would have been
the time to trade up. They traded up to try to get Mitch, and because they were worried they weren't going to be able to get him at 3 and traded up to 2, but they wouldn't trade up to get Quentin Nelson
So
maybe they weren't able to because
Ryan has. He's talked about bringing quarterbacks in almost every year that he could do something like that. He didn't do it. He brought in Mitch. He brought in Mike Lennon. He brought in Nick Foles, and all of them are failures. I mean, just to put it out there plain, none of them worked. It was a bad decision. Why are you now where the team so desperately needs a quarterback and needs to be drafting a quarterback or developing quarterbacks for the future, even if it doesn't happen next year that you have a stud, but you're getting somebody in the system that's being developed. Do you trust Ryan Pace to make that decision? Because I don't whatsoever. Why would I?
No.
And it's not that he's, there's things that he's done well. He's been pretty average at best in free agency.
Pace, Nagy, and Mitch. You can.
Oh, I know.
That's why there's so much argument about all 3 of them. You'll have guys that believe in Pace and guys that vehemently hate Pace. You'll have guys that believe in Nagy, guys that vehemently hate Nagy. You have guys that believe in Mitch, and then you got guys that vehemently hate Mitch. And the reason for that is
that's kind of
every once in a while is they do certain things good, but for the most part, they just don't fit the bill of what you need to be a consistently successful franchise.
Consistency is the key word, right? I mean,
exactly.
Mitch has never been a consistent quarterback. He
hasn't been a consistent evaluator.
Pace hasn't. No, Nagy exactly. So you're asking for consistency at best, or to just be consistently something. And if you're something that's north of average, can you be consistently north of average? And if you can't, then we have to start looking elsewhere because it's not good enough. And it's just really disappointing because this team is in such an awkward position now with the way that it's been constructed, the way the cap is, the way we have no quarterbacks of the future on this team, the way the coaching staff is very suspect. It's just like, man, it's a weird position to be in to just roll these guys back out next year.
George McCaskey is looking at it the way we do. You hear in the quotes sometimes in pressers of his, he says he looks at things like a fan. Well, the Bears basically put up 3 points today. And last week they got smacked in the mouth, embarrassed, laughed at by the Green Bay Packers, who I know is his biggest rival. So, to me, he has to be coming back just as I am mentally to the clean house scenario, as you hear my daughter raising hell up there on old Mama Braggs. But luckily I don't have to wrangle her in. I get to come down here and drown my sorrows in the end of the season for the Chicago Bears. We got our buddy Timmy Bremer in the chat. He found us on Facebook the other night, and he was saying it was pretty cool to see. And welcome to Braggs in the Stands, Timmy B. We're here to drown our sorrows in my Mitchell Trubisky tears. I know there's a lot of people tuned in to hear me cry about my baby boy. Yes, it's over, my guy, and the 2018 Bears officially, and everything that was so special about that team and so much fun is over. We even had fun graphics like this when they came in. Jake made this graphic in 2018, and then Mitch was retweeting. It was a lot of fun, man. I enjoyed that regimen. I enjoyed Mitchell Trubisky here as quarterback of the Bears, and 2 years in the playoffs in the last 3 years. Even though this last one obviously was like a backdoor in, it still has been entertaining as a fan. We have had some pretty down years. Cleveland Browns are playing their first game tonight in 18 years in the playoffs. So, while the
Bills played their first in 20, or they had their first win in 25 years.
It's a matter of perspective. Yeah. Exactly. And the Bears haven't had their playoff win since 2010 when Jake and I went and saw them beat the Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round. And that was a fun game that day. And I'm looking forward to getting back to that point. And I want to get back to that point. Everybody, wanted to always want to put – label me as the truther, because we all know Christopher Black and Abdallah came up with that. And don't ever forget it, Jake. And I am the
invented the word truther, right?
Yeah, and they put it in the dictionary. And don't ever forget that I'm the king truther. And the reason for that was because I rooted for the kid. I did think he should have been a better quarterback here in Chicago. But just because I'm a king truther doesn't mean I'm not ready to move on from the Mitchell Trubisky experience. I am.
I thought he would play a lot more loose today. I thought he'd use his legs a lot more. He pulled up lame on that third down. Like, he was right in front of the sticks and he ran out of bounds 2 yards shy. He was taking checkdowns too much.
The running short on the first down on fourth or third and short there, whatever you want to call it, to the sticks. While he could have planted his foot instead of running to the out of bounds and trying to cut back up for the first down. Had he tried, he likely tackled short. If you watch the replay, though, and be fair to the alternate universe of him actually doing what every fan wanted him to do and cut inside and try to get the first down, which is a fair criticism, I still don't think he gets it. But that's not to excuse the play.
But who cares? When you go out of bounds, though, you totally eliminate the possibility that something happens and you don't get the first down. So if you actually would have tried to make a move and done something, there's a possibility he might have fought for that first down as opposed to just giving him or whatever. But he let himself just go out of bounds and take himself out of the play.
I don't disagree that maybe he could have planted his foot and attempted to get the first down. It doesn't mean he would have gotten the first down if you look at the replay. And that's fine, because here's the truther making my final excuses.
But you don't get it. You don't make it at all going out of bounds. That's all.
But the context of it, and I just felt like Bears Twitter and their low-hanging fruit of letting Mitch be the whipping boy on Bears Twitter, while 2 plays prior to that, Javon Wims catches a 60-yard dime ball bomb for a touchdown, and that's the reason that drive was stalled, not because Mitch, but it's all encompassing. It's everything. You have all these little things go wrong, and then they play put such a huge bearing on the game, and it shouldn't be that way. The Bears should be able to score more points. It shouldn't feel so limited that those few little missed moments are the reason you didn't win a game that's 24-3 by the end of it. You had the penalty on Cole Kmet. That was a ridiculous taunting penalty when the Saints, all they do is taunt.
Luke Atlas back here on Bears Postgame Live on Channel 50. Bears lose 21-9.
And no, it's okay, because I know we're waiting along for Matt Nagy.
Yeah, I'm waiting for this to start.
We're going to bring him too. But, to me, it's just like everything that can go wrong. And then again, the Cole Kmet taunting penalty that literally cost the Bears 7 points. It was about to be 3rd and short, and instead it's 3rd and 20, and there's no chance of them getting 7. They got to settle for 3, and that's all they get. Those little plays, the Javon Wims, all those little things lead to all of a sudden the Bears haven't scored any points by the time we get halfway through the third quarter. And again, the bar should be much higher than that, but that's playoff football. Those little plays matter, and you got to have them go your way if you want to win. Even if you're a great team, you're going to find yourself in a dogfight. Do I think the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl? Probably not. It looks like Drew Brees is still a little banged up to me personally, but they had their opportunities, and they just never were able to take advantage of them. And at some point, you do have to get off the Mitchell Trubisky experience and want better, and I do. Now that his time has run out here, let's move on from him. But if we're going to do all of this cleaning and maybe Ryan Pace goes along with him, I just don't see a point in keeping Matt Nagy too. Now, maybe they sign a GM and he chooses to keep Matt Nagy in, but you're going to have to do some real convincing. If they end up signing Louis Riddick as their GM, then maybe they do keep him. I don't know. There's a lot of smoke right now with this whole.
Well, I've heard stuff about elevating Nagy to president of football operations, and then bringing in a general manager. I've heard some things like that, but why give him? I don't know. I don't think I'm harder on him than most people, but a lot of people in the chat at least seem to think that Pace is worthy of sticking around. I just don't see it personally.
I know, and that's what is so polarizing about these three: Pace, Nagy, and Mitch. For the country, it's just Mitch is the polarizing conversation. But here in Chicago, in my opinion, all three, you can find such wide-ranging opinions about all three of these guys, and it is kind of fascinating to watch people argue through it. And it just gets me to a point where my brain shuts down and I say, screw this. Just wipe the slate clean. I felt the exact same way when the Phil Emery, Mark Trestman, and Jay Cutler experience had gone completely off the rails. And what did they do? They fired Phil Emery and Mark Trestman, and then they signed Jay Cutler to a 7-year deal. If they get rid of Pace and get rid of Mitch, and then
that's not what happened. They didn't sign him. Well, no, because Emery is the one that signed Cutler to a 7-year deal. So when Trestman got fired, that's when Cutler got benched, and then that was kind of the end there of Cutler, because when Pace came in, he was done with Jay. So Emery's the one after the Lovey was fired that he got extended.
But Jay made it through all three of them is my ultimate point, and I just wish they would have got rid of all three right at that moment, because I know there was a GM, Chris Ballard, that wanted to come in and be the GM of the Bears. He was in-house as someone that had already been groomed here in Chicago in the front office. And he said if he came here as the GM, he wanted to get rid of Jay Cutler. And George McCaskey and Ted Phillips said, nope, we are not doing that. And they chose not to get Chris Ballard. So that kind of stuff cannot play into this. If you're making a decision on a new GM and he says, well, I got to get rid of Matt Nagy, and Ted Phillips and George are saying, well, sorry, then you're not our guy. That's not the way they should be doing business here coming up in the offseason. And we're going to get some of these answers fairly quickly, because if you're going to make a move on GM or head coach, it's got to be quick so you can start getting into the interview process. There's already teams that have wiped their GM and head coaches and are already looking at these candidates. So George McCaskey is literally sitting in his office right now thinking about this. And we as fans and media, and I know Sylvie's probably already on Twitter pumping this, we got to put a little pressure on them to do the right thing here, or else George might be lulled into thinking, well, the fan base isn't as that maybe they're a little more apoplectic about it, and we'll let Matt Nagy stick around for another year. No, just wipe the slate clean. Let's start fresh here and do it the right way, in my opinion.
Well, and look what you have after 6 years of Ryan Pace being a general manager. You don't have a quarterback. You have a lot of defensive contracts that were built up because you thought that your team was about to compete for a Super Bowl, and now in reverse, you're actually completely in the opposite direction to do that because you couldn't get the quarterback right. Like, you have no quarterbacks on your team now. You have no future prospect for a quarterback when you've had 6 years to be drafting guys, developing them. You've been very content to have your second and third string quarterbacks be guys that have no future in the NFL, really. Tyler Bray has been on this team forever, it seems, and he's completely useless. So it's just like, why am I know
Heineke making plays as a third string.
Yeah, I know Pace has made some good defensive decisions. He's drafted some guys well in mid rounds. He's had a couple nice hits. Free agency's got a couple nice signings. He's got probably more bad signings free agent wise than not. Why am I giving this guy the opportunity to keep driving this franchise when right now they're basically starting over because they have no damn quarterback? That's the one thing you need in this league is a solid quarterback to win, and we don't have that.
No.
And this guy had 6 years to do something about it, and it's been a complete failure. That to me is a firing offense, regardless if you have some good talent that you brought in here, on mostly the defensive side of the ball. It's a fireable offense to me, and you got to bring in somebody that has a fresh perspective of how to analyze some of these guys and bring them in, because this just isn't working.
I completely agree, and we're going to find out. It's going to be make or break time this week. We may even find out in the next couple of days, because I know George McCaskey will want to, dole down these media flames, because they're going to be all over him starting as soon as Matt Nagy heads to the podium. And I'm sure he's given his team their final speech of the season. And, it just wasn't good enough today. And that's unfortunate, because I did think that they had a chance to win. And I know a lot of people probably were like, oh, that's just Homer Greg. But those opportunities that I talked about,
they did have a chance to win.
Miller, they all showed up. Even Alvin Kamara's fumble on the handoff exchange, because they haven't had that practice that almost popped out. Michael Thomas had a few plays, but certainly was getting competed with by the DBs. And some of these guys are Kendall Vildor and Duke Shelley, backup corners that were playing football. I mean, I'm not going to, you won't hear a word from me about the defense today, because they got guys out and they battled with one of the toughest quarterbacks to ever play this game.
And they were on the field all day long.
They're on the field all day long. They had made opportunity after opportunity to put the offense in position. And whether it was Javon Wims with the drop, or Mitch Trubiskys not seeing David Montgomery over the middle, and my guy Little Kev wants his dang pizza.
Yeah, Greg was all in on this victory.
Well, it would have happened if Javon Wims catches the dang touchdown. They don't call the Cole Kmet flag. All these little things. I've told you for 2 years now, it's Murphy's Law with this team. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And now all of a sudden we've got officially the Black and Abdallah Hive has officially entered the chat. And we got Little Kev and Will Chase, my guy Will Chase from the Cut to the Chase podcast, have entered the comment chats, and we appreciate you guys joining us. And yes, I owe Little Kevin a pizza, and he's trying to say it's a definite large. We never agreed to a size, Kevin.
Just buy a large.
We did agree to Lou Malnati's, and you know what? I am a nice guy, but we'll see how he treats me. This is a tough time for me now that the Bears are out, so I'm going to review how he's treating me through the Twitter streets and everywhere else.
Smaller, medium, whatever.
Oh, see, look, and now he's trying to play humble Little Kev, which I don't like, because I already know he's just throwing the okie doke on me. You're going to get your Lou Malnati's. And Sylvie from Waddle and Sylvie, of course, Mark Silverman, my good buddy, he also won a pizza bet on me. So I'm looking forward to getting a lot of crap from those guys. And then, of course, I'm going to be getting crap from the Black and Abdallah Hive forever. And of course, Christopher Black with his truther.
Here we go.
And Matt Nagy is at the podium, maybe for the final time ever in a post game.
If I could get the damn sound to work,
and we'll get it. You got to pull that bar over to the right.
I'm trying, man. There it goes.
There it is. Now hit play
in that locker room, and just to appreciate these guys. It's been a long year, and I love every one of these guys, these players, these coaches, and been through a lot. So it's not where we want to be. So we understand we got to grow from this. We got to learn in a lot of different areas.
Agreed.
But these guys,
you finally get it.
Again, when they fight and they care about it, at this moment, I just appreciate them. And so as far as the game, third down on offense, we struggled, to be 1 of 10. When you have an opportunity to make some big plays, you got to be able to make those opportunities against a really good football team. Give credit to Sean Payton and that team. They got a lot of great things going there. They're tough, and so in all three phases for us, we just didn't put it together. And we know that we got to we got to be better and we got to score more points. Defensively, I thought our guys came out and fought. We talked all week about getting the ball on the ground, getting turnovers, getting takeaways. You could feel the energy and the juice on the sideline. And so that part was good. Offensively, we struggled to get that run game going. And we've been a lot better weeks prior. And we were able to work off of our boots and our nakeds and our play actions. And we struggled a little bit there. So that's where I think, that combined with third down, and then we had the penalty in the red zone, and it forced us into a 3rd and 20. So times like that, we got to learn from that. And then to have the offsides on 4th downs, just little things like that. And then with Anthony, having him get disqualified from the game, I think, our guys got to learn from all of that and understand what it takes. So with that, I'll go ahead and ask questions.
Lord.
First up, Jason Leisure.
Here, I see where this is going.
Matt, you said you're not where you want to be. Taking into account the whole season and what happened today, do you believe this team is on track to become a contender, or do you believe that major changes are necessary to get there?
No, I think, well, here's what I would say to that question is, making the playoffs is great, but what we did today has to be a lot better, and so how do we do that? Every year is always going to be a little bit different. That's just a simple fact. Matter of fact, Jason, I just told the guys in the locker room that for us to get better and to be the team that we need to be, that's something that we'll do here in the offseason is make sure that wherever there's a weakness, we make it a strength. And
why isn't your team disciplined?
So,
why didn't you do that going into this year?
You look at it.
Well, we yelled at him. He got scared.
That has been there, done that on the coaching side, player-wise. I think
for God's
better
sake.
in a lot of different areas, and that's my job is to make sure that happens, and we got to learn from that. So I would say, every year is a little bit different. Yep.
You mentioned Anthony Miller, and you said he's got to learn from that. I mean, you guys already had this happen. You seemed like you felt almost betrayed when Javon Wims did this, and now how do you feel now to see Anthony Miller do it in a playoff game?
So here's what I would say to that.
Let's hear it.
We spent some time now on Wednesday morning as a team. We spent time literally showing and explaining a particular player's actions in games and teaching it. And that's taking 10 or 15 minutes out of your day, which is precious, right? And so when you do that, I think it's a valuable lesson for our guys is we already knew going into this thing about
what does it say about him that they spent 15 minutes out of his day and then
so
they still don't
I think it's
respect what he said?
Especially when we're low with numbers at the wide receiver position and the value of that zebra position for us. And so again, it's something where our guys, we all got to understand we got to be stronger, and we can't have that happen. And we got to understand that.
Somebody asked him a tough question.
That's 2 times that happened, and we just can't have it.
Jeff Dickerson.
Matt, when you guys dial up that trick play and it's right there, and I mean, Wins just drops it.
Yeah.
How damaging is that for you guys, knowing that you're facing an uphill battle as it is? You're on the road, you're against the Saints, it's the playoffs, and to not come away with that play, what does that do for you guys at that moment?
So I'd be sitting here lying to you, Jeff, if I told you it didn't hurt. That hurt. But I'm never going to, of all the people, Javon Wims, we've had that's been sitting in the playbook now for weeks. We've been practicing that. We had it. We've been waiting for the right time. And our guys knew when it was coming early on.
What's funny about that is
they
ran that trick
another
play
learning tool against the team like
that they showed on
NFL
NFL Network here
to be made
that we showed on
that play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Javon knows that. I'm not saying anything that Javon doesn't know. He understands that. But we all need to learn that when that happened, Mitch did a great job of giving him a chance, put great air on the ball, and Javon, he didn't make the play. And so now the next step of that, what do we got to do? So when that happens, to teams that got to grow in that scenario is you don't let that affect you. You don't let
all
that
of this
deflate
just sounds
you.
like mediocrity
so
to me.
I
It's
really
just
feel like
8-8
everybody, coaches,
shit
players,
team.
you learn from that. You say,
Guard,
okay,
you know,
cares?
He
Let's
just
get back.
blames
And,
like with the Miller thing. He
it's never
blamed
really
Miller.
He
He's
sounds
not
like a
saying-
guy that
JJ?
sounds like a guy that knows his job is safe. Honestly,
Matt, the
'cause
decision
he's-
to run it
he's
three
too
times there at
complacent
the end
with
of the
these
first
answers.
half, were you just hoping to get into halftime and then try to find some solutions and some answers as an offense at that point?
Yeah, it was the field position, JJ. I didn't like the field position, and I just thought that for us that we all need to understand. I was telling the coaches, hey, let's see where we can go here, big picture. With let's get a first down or two, and the field position was so bad that if you could see they called a timeout on first down.
He's talking
and
about
then they were out of
before
timeout.
the
He
half.
got scared.
being
They
7-3,
scared you, huh, Nagy,
knowing
when they
we're
called that
getting the
timeout,
ball to start the third quarter. At that point in time, that was really the mindset, just because of the field position. Now you end up getting a first down or two, and now it flips. Now you go from that 4-minute mode to that 2-minute mode. So yeah.
Kevin
Still,
Fishbane?
I don't know if that's acceptable.
Hey Matt, did you get any explanation from the officials on the penalty on Cole?
Jesus Christ.
They said that the explanation that was told to me is that he was throwing the ball
I
to
can't
the
believe
player.
these are the questions. I know the season's over,
I couldn't
guys,
see
right?
any replays.
Who gives a shit
And
about
I was
Cole's
told,
PI?
Cole and
Or,
our
I'm
coaches
sorry,
on
the,
staff said that he was throwing the ball to the ref. And so I was told that he was throwing the ball to the player like it was taunting. And I haven't seen it until this point. I still haven't seen a replay on that. But I will say this: that was a big play in the game. And for us to have that field position we had, now it's 3rd and 20. I was confused as to what happened. I still haven't seen it, so I got to see what happened there. I don't know, but when Cole says he was throwing the ball to the ref, until I see it, I got to believe what he's saying.
Dan Wiederer?
That's an important question.
Matt, until the very last moment, what about that trick play worked well and what allowed it to execute? And then just to follow up,
There's no football next week, guys.
You see that went into this.
There's no football games next week. What are you asking me about?
So what's your question on the trick play? What was it?
Just what allowed that to work so well for you there?
That formation and that personnel, we've been running the ball out of a lot all season. And, we talked about doing it last week and the possibility at the right time. But then once we knew going into this week where we knew exactly
JJ already
when we
asked
got to a certain spot that it was coming out. Our guys knew it for days. And so it's like one of those ones where you just, especially I think it was coming off of the timeout as well. So
I'm telling you, man, the way his body language is, it just seems like he knows he's safe.
It's exactly what you want. And he made a great throw, and we just didn't.
It's the same thing with the Packers game. It just didn't seem like anything phased him. You just got knocked out of the playoffs, dude. And you're just the way he's talking is like they're playing next week. It's crazy.
They're really good disguising their fronts, disguising their coverages. They did a lot of zone today, which we've been seeing a lot of. They got good players, and so there was a couple times where I'll have to go back and watch, but you just felt like, whether it was the protection or whether it was a
if I was George, I'd fire him for his press conference.
No matter any way you look at
alone.
it, you can't be 1 for 10 and think you're going to have a chance to win the game. You can't.
2 more for Coach. Brad Biggs.
Man, you guys rallied to get into the playoffs, but ultimately you lose 8 of your final 11 games.
Yeah,
is kind of trending positive as you look forward to. Hey, we got to put together a plan for the off season.
Yeah, so when you look at it that way and you say, man, you lost this many heading into the end of it. I think what we need to do as a staff is we got to say, okay, why is that? Where is it? And how do we get better? And there's every year is different. And you look at this right now, and I think identity wise as an offense, you guys could see that we felt like we created an identity. But now how do we learn from
created
that?
an identity, not running the offense you run.
Like today, no matter what your identity is, you always got to be able to run the football.
I tell you,
you said that last offseason, and then you didn't run the football until the last 5 weeks of the season.
But you're going to have a lot more 2nd and 5s and 2nd and 4s and 2nd and 3s, which then keeps you out of the 3rd and longs. 3rd and longs versus any defense, let alone this defense, is hard. And so what we need to do is we'll do that here in the next coming weeks is really start figuring out, okay, where are we? How do we get better? We know this isn't good enough. And what we need to do is do everything we can to be able to win a Super Bowl. That's the goal. The goal is not to make the playoffs and
win a Super Bowl. My God, dude, could you not be further from that?
Stuff. And we obviously know there's a lot of big decisions.
Last one, Pat Finn.
Question: have you been told that you're back next year? Number one, and number two, your staff the last 2 years has had 2 off seasons has had a lot of turnover. What will you evaluate if you're back next year in terms of whether you need to make changes among your group?
We haven't gotten into any of that, Pat, in regards to that stuff. Again, like I told you all at the beginning of the week, we've been so focused in on this game, and then
so looked locked in on this game so we could score 9 points.
You all know. I mean, it's probably not just our staff; it's probably a lot of staffs. With whether it's promotions or demotions or whatever, there's always change. That's just how it goes. So that's something that tomorrow for us as a team, we'll do all of our exit interviews and all that stuff and talk to the guys, but. That'll be down the road, and I'm just at a point right now where I can literally say I appreciate the fight of these players, and now tomorrow we'll discuss the other stuff.
Thanks, Coach. We're all set.
Right, guys. Thank you.
God, was that bad?
Why are you the way that you are?
When he talks to the media.
Unreal.
Oh boy. Well, that was Matt Nagy, the final post-game presser podium of the 2020 season, and that concludes 2020 football as we know it. They actually made it all the way. What's that?
You don't want to hear Mitch talk?
I do want to hear Mitch talk. Is he coming immediately to the
as soon as he comes up, I'll pull him up for you.
Yes, it's his final time speaking at the podium as the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I am your king truther. Mitchell Trubisky is my baby boy, and we are going to finally, let him free. Let the bird fly away from his home and see if he can spread his wings elsewhere. I will root for him wherever he goes. I know there will be a lot of truthers out there that will keep a close eye to see if he works out elsewhere to prove their theory that the chaos here in Chicago was a direct correlation to the inconsistencies that we saw with Mitchell Trubisky, but we won't know until he goes to another team, and that's another bet for another day with my guy, Little Kevin, and I've already lost one pizza to him, so maybe I can even the score. If he makes his way to the San Francisco 49ers, maybe he'll have a better career than he did here in Chicago.
He'll make his money as a nice backup.
He could be a backup, but
this guy is not. What makes you think something's just going to turn his light on and he's just going to be a starter? Like, I just don't see that.
I'm not guaranteeing it. And like I said, I'll be interested to see how he does elsewhere. I've always felt he had the intangibles. He is a good leader, all that stuff that people think is like a blah, blah, blah thing. It is something that holds water to something that I think is important in the quarterback position. But yeah, ultimately you got to make plays and you got to execute and you got to be able to beat the big dogs on the big stage. He wasn't able to do it in 2018. He wasn't able to do it this year. But that's not to say that if he can't go to a different situation with a coach that plays to his strengths that, you saw it. The Titans today with Ryan Tannehill has been one of the hottest quarterbacks for the last 22 games. They shut down Derrick Henry and then Ryan Tannehill came back to earth. But that doesn't mean Ryan Tannehill is a terrible quarterback that you can't win a Super Bowl with and that Tennessee should be trying to get rid of Ryan Tannehill. It just means that, if you don't have a transcendent quarterback, there's a different way to win in football. And Matt Nagy from the whole 2019 season and half of the 2020 season was trying to get Mitch Trubisky to play a brand of football that he was not capable of playing. And you heard Matt Nagy say in the presser, well, we found our identity at the end of the year. That identity was going directly against everything you were trying to teach the team for a year and a half. You put the playbook down. You let Bill Lazor call the plays. They started to get into a ground and pound, play action, bootleg, stuff that isn't what Matt Nagy, he's the one that said last year when he came into the presser when they lost to the Saints last year in 2019, I didn't come here to run the eye. And he was pissed off when he was asked, how dare I be asked why I only ran it 7 times in one game? He has no interest in running the ball. He's trying to run a different offense than the one we've seen the last 4 weeks. So I laugh when I hear him say they've found a new identity. So you're telling me next year you're going to go into next year with this new identity that you built to play to Mitch's strengths, and Mitch won't even be here. Why wouldn't you just go back to the Matt Nagy offense that you were trying to create? It was all the quarterback's fault, right? Or are you telling me that your whole playbook with the whole Denny's menu was crap and we didn't need it for 2 years? Is that what you're telling me? If that's what you're telling me, then you shouldn't be the coach here next year, because you put the playbook down, you put the play sheet down, you let Bill Lazor call the plays, and then you still couldn't get your team to stay disciplined in their moment. He said it right there. I spent 15 minutes of my day explaining to these guys that this is what this guy does, and he's going to instigate you into a fight. And what happened? They did it anyway. So you didn't tell them, you didn't get it in their head hard enough as a coach. You didn't let it resonate. They're not intimidated. They don't have your respect. That's the bottom line. And if you think that all those problems are going to go away next year just because Mitch Trubiskys isn't the quarterback anymore, I'm worried about those prospects. Now, if they keep Matt, am I going to root against him? No. But if it was me right now as the owner, I'd just get rid of everybody. It's too big of a risk.
No, it's the perfect time to do it.
It's a cleaner direction, in my opinion. But it doesn't seem like he's very worried about his job.
If all these guys are back next year, it's going to be hard to get up for this season. I mean, I'll always get up for Bears football and be excited for it, but it's just like, who am I hanging my hat on right now that I really feel like is the right person in the right position at the right time? I don't feel that way about Ryan. I don't feel that way about Matt. I don't know if I feel that way about George, to be honest with you. So there's nothing that where I can look at, even obviously quarterback, but there's nothing that the Bears have right now that when I look at it, I think, okay, well, at least they have something solid here to move them forward, or something solid to build on, when it comes to organizational, or head coach, or something to build a program with. Like, there's nothing that I feel confident about that is in its right position right now. So it's kind of hard to get excited on. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's now we have our clarity, Chubbs, I'm finally on point. It took me all year to get to there, but I'm there. And that's because I'm a fan. I can understand two different routes and root for one thing, but understand we may need another. I can walk and chew gum at the same time, as my guy Tom Waddle likes to put it. And so when we were at 5 wins and Nick Foles was our quarterback and we had 6-game losing streak sitting right in front of us, it's easy to see that clarity of, we need to clean house. These guys don't know what they're doing. But as they started to build it up, beating bad teams, improving the palatable, eye test of what the offense looked like, I gave them an opportunity. Again, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Did that mean I was giving anybody an extension? I saw some people on Twitter going, Greg, you let them beating a few teams fool you. They didn't fool me. I can allow my mind to open up to things that maybe others can't. And if they had won today and beaten the Saints by hook or by crook, to me, as a person that's just trying to put my owner hat on and look through the eyes of a owner realistically, I always hear that word realistic on Twitter. I would have to be realistic to the fact that they beat Drew Brees on the road. They've made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, and I would have been more than willing to let all 3 of these guys come back for 1 more year. That's not extending anyone past 1 more year, but I could have opened up my mind to that. They didn't do that. Not only did they not do that, but they pooped down their leg. They only scored 3 points. The defense did come back, so that did feel a little better because, where were they for the last 2 months? But they came back to life finally. But
it's some pass rush.
But at the end of the day, all those little mistakes and the things we've seen over the last 2 years are rearing their ugly head, and it's just not good enough. So, yeah, let's move on from everything. Let's do what the Cardinals did and clean house and go out and get your guys and line them up. Find your quarterback, and let's see how we can go that way. That's how I do it personally, but we'll see. Would a Louis Riddick coming here, that would likely, if they bring in Louis Riddick as a GM, then that saves Matt Nagy's job, because I know Louis Riddick and Matt Nagy are close. And then
the guys from the Saints organization, the Chiefs.
And Louis has been a big guy coming on Waddle and Sylvie each week for a few years here on ESPN 1000, and Another thing to me that's interesting in that dynamic, if they were to look that route and get rid of Pace, bring in Louis Riddick, is I know Deshaun Watson really wanted Louis Riddick in Houston. You're hearing a lot of chatter about Deshaun Watson wanting out of Houston. You've already heard whispers of maybe a trade to the Dolphins for Tua and all this craziness, and people are saying none of it has any kind of a possibility. But I'll tell you what, once upon a time, Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler were joking around on Twitter about coming to the Bears, and a few months later, Brandon Marshall was traded for a couple third-round picks to the Chicago Bears. So things can happen very quickly. You never know, and I definitely think that's something to keep an eye on going into this offseason. I know a guy like George McCaskey would immediately pull the trigger on a move like that just to right that wrong here in Chicago. Now, I get that's a pipe dream and everything else, but I'm just saying, if they were to bring in a GM like Louis Riddick, who I'm not saying is worthy of a job or anything, I don't know. I just want the right GM here. I know some people are big on Louis Riddick. I personally have no barometer on how I can determine who is and isn't a good GM. You can show me their resumes and show me their bad picks and all this stuff. That's fine. Let somebody smarter than me decide.
He's never been a GM though either.
Right. So I know there may be some people that are against a guy like Louis Riddick. It wouldn't surprise me. I haven't looked in the chat, but maybe a guy like Chubbs doesn't like Louis Riddick just because
you got Champ Kelly interviewing for jobs. He's a very respected scout. He's in your system. What's wrong with him?
Yeah, I saw that brought up in the chat earlier.
I just would hope that somebody with a bit of a different philosophy around quarterback would be in a position of making some of these decisions, because Ryan abused the quarterback position for 6 years in Chicago. He didn't take nearly enough swings at all at the position, and then he just brought in these guys, and maybe that was at the behest of the head coaches, but you're still bringing in the guys as your second and third string that have no elongated future other than being these random backup players. There's no development, there's no scouting of what one of these quarterbacks could be that are in the draft for any of these 6 years that he's been general manager. And that bothers me, especially if you're general manager of the Chicago Bears, who have never practically had a real, higher echelon quarterback since Sid Luckman was slinging the rock. That should be one of your main priorities, just by knowing virtue of the history of the organization. So it just kind of blows me away that quarterback isn't something that everyone is just absolutely locked onto if you're a general manager for the Bears or any or football franchise. But it's just crazy. That's why, whether you bring in Deshaun Watson or not, because I kind of feel like if you bring in Deshaun Watson, you also run the risk of, really having a hard time or constructing a roster around him by all the assets you're giving up and how much money he's going to cost against the cap. I'm just as excited just to have somebody here who's ready to absolutely attack the quarterback position through the draft, through free agency, whatever it is, that's cool. But I want to see somebody absolutely attack the position and build on it constantly. And let's see what happens. And that just hasn't happened here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And has my baby boy Mitchell made it to the podium?
No, I'm still waiting for him.
He's probably in there taking his time. I'm sure he's upset, and I'm sure he knows that this is probably his final day as the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And he doesn't have to hang his head as much as I know Chicago fans will say he does. I thought, for everything that was put up against him, he wasn't the one that drafted himself at 2 to come to the Bears. He wasn't the one that missed on Mahomes and Watson to come to the Bears. That was Ryan Pace. And, for what he did here in Chicago is, when you stack up some of the other quarterback resumes in this town, it's probably top 3. And so for me personally, I am going to look at Mitchell Trubisky's career here a lot differently than most, and I understand most are going to always transfix themselves on the miss of Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, clearly, and Deshaun Watson, of course. I get it, but I don't blame Mitchell for that, and I admire how he carried himself every year here in Chicago, and he did everything he could. This team, and like I said, 2018 was as fun as a team as I've ever, witnessed as a fan, gone to all the games. It was a lot of fun. And this year is just so odd to, just like the Cubs, to watch the team in their final hurrah fall short. Both made the playoffs, both pushed out right away in the first round, no wins or anything to get your hopes up about in the playoffs. And now they're all moving on. You see with the Cubs, Kyle Schwarber, going to the Nationals, Darvish gets traded. All these guys are gone. And I didn't get to go to any games last year. And the same thing with the Bears. I did actually have the good fortune of being able to go to a game in Tennessee when the Bears got handed to it by the Tennessee Titans. And I was grateful for that experience. But at the same time, it's weird to watch a regiment of a team just go like next year. Hopefully, luckily enough, we're able to go to games next year. It'll be a completely looking different team than we've seen here in the last 3 years. And I'm sure by the time next year starts, we'll be excited about that stuff. New beginnings are always something fans can get behind. But it's just weird to say goodbye to this current group without ever actually seeing them play. Everything's on TV. I don't know. Personally, for me as a fan that goes to the games, and that's what this show's all about, brags in the stands, to not be able to go and see all this stuff, and now they're gone. It's just kind of a surreal thing. But, like I said, I'm more than willing to move on to the next thing, argue about the next quarterback, find out about the next team, if they're going to be the one that finally gets over the top and brings home, a Super Bowl trophy to Chicago. And, I know me and Jake have been waiting a long time for that. So here he is, Mitchell Trubisky, my baby boy, at the podium for the final time as the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. It's okay. Take your time. I got you.
Piece of junk.
No,
Lord.
there you go. You got it. I believe in you.
I don't have it. Jesus Christ.
It's all right. He's shy. Mitch is shy. Well, you're not.
Let me refresh it.
I was going to say, you were trying to click on the white dot.
I'm literally clicking on it.
I see. You get it. I believe in you, Jake. We all do.
The most ridiculous thing.
This does hurt.
Mitch, how do you think you performed over these last few games after coming back from being benched? And what do you think that says about you to the franchise?
I feel like I got better. I feel like I got better this year. I felt like when I was put back in the starting lineup that the offense was better, and I gave my team a chance to win. And we did win games, and that's why we were able to get back into the playoffs. It wasn't just me, but it was the whole unit coming together and the team making plays and really getting through that adversity together. But I feel like I was a big part of that. So there are some good things that we did towards the end of the season that helped us put us in a position to be able to play here tonight, but that's not how we want to finish. We finished the season 8-8, slid into the playoffs. We did that last year. So there's still things that need to be changed. There's still a lot of areas we need to grow in order to build that championship culture that we want to get to. So I think we have some pieces, but I also think there's a lot more that we need to do better. We need to figure that out.
Dan Wiederer.
Mitch, when you took the flip from CP and you looked downfield, what's going through your mind there when you had Javon deep there?
Dan's writing a big story on that play.
The ball as a touchdown. So you don't get a lot of opportunities like that and get your guy pretty wide open behind the safety.
Shut up, Greg.
For last few
Leave him
weeks.
alone.
I was excited. Coach got it called. And that definitely would have helped early on, getting on the board and getting us some momentum. So I thought it was going to be a touchdown, but got to have that next play mentality. But we just overall we're just sloppy tonight.
Is there a name to that play?
The shut up.
Yeah, but I don't want to say it.
Jason Leisure.
Mitch, how do you explain the drop-off that the offense has when it looks so good against the Lions and the Texans and the Jaguars, and then against Green Bay and New Orleans, you guys struggle?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of things. I think it comes down to execution, and there's some things I think we can do differently, game planning, just to put ourselves in a better position early on. But it always comes down to the basics at the end of the day. Are we doing good on third down? And tonight we were not. Were we efficient on first and second down? Tonight we were not. So we were in third and longs, and it wasn't very manageable. And they're putting us in tough positions, and we just didn't execute. So we shot ourselves in the foot a lot. I didn't think we played very smart tonight with the penalties, and it was just sloppy. So, like I said, there's a lot of things that we need to do better, a lot of things that need to change, and a lot of it is the culture and what we accept and what we don't. So we just got to keep getting better, and you
you got to play your best ball against better teams like that, especially Green Bay last week and the Saints this week. You got to show up to play and execute, and everybody's got to be on the same page. And tonight it was just sloppy for us, so that's why
Browns lead 28-0.
A couple more here for Mitch. JJ?
No double doink happening to the Browns tonight.
You guys had built that offensive identity through the month of December. I guess, can you put a finger on why that kind of escaped you guys? And do you feel like you were still put in the best positions to succeed against some better defenses like the Packers and Saints?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we just kind of got away from it tonight a little bit. I'm not sure why.
Every single week.
Just go out there, try to do my job to the best of my
He's
ability.
calling on Nagy slightly.
Yeah, he should. He sucks.
But when you're not efficient on first, second down, and they're putting you in known passing situations, you also got to be able to pass the ball and convert on third down that way. But we didn't tonight, and
pretty well. On us. And that was
just, we didn't execute. We didn't put ourselves in a good position. We got to get that run game going a little bit more, so everything else can come off of that. But
again,
got to give them credit. They came out. They played better than we did, and they were the better team tonight. But I got a lot of love for my guys, and I'm just proud of the way that we battled all year long, and they still battled tonight, even up until the very end. And I do think there is a lot we can still get better at to put our guys in a better position to succeed. So that's just something we got to look at, something to talk about, and then move forward with.
Last one, Colleen Kane.
Hey, Mitch, just kind of going off Pat's question to open this, just with the uncertainty for you going into the offseason, how do you kind of process that this potentially could be your last start with the Bears?
Yeah, I think it's emotional, and it was in the locker room, but we've been through so much as a team this year, and it's just a special moment to share with the guys and just show your appreciation for everything they've done over the course of this year. And really, a lot of these guys I've been with for 4 years, so that's really special to me, especially some of the guys up front like Cody and Leno. They've had my back since I've been here, and those guys, among many others, mean so much to me. So it's tough, and you try not to think about too far down the line and just take it one day at a time. And I know there's decisions that are going to be made this offseason, and I feel like I've gotten better over these 4 years and really this season. And it's been tough. There's been some ups and downs, but I'm proud of where I'm at and where we battled and how we got better over the years. So we'll just take it one day at a time this off season. And I know God's got a plan for me. So I'm just continue to stay positive and keep working and keep believing.
That's all. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, guys.
Mitchell Trubisky, United for the air.
Mitchell Trubisky for the final time. Very well could be.
Realistically,
definitely the final time ever at the podium as the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. So that means it's probably the last time I'm going to share this picture. Actually, well, I'm sure it'll be up again.
No, we'll be showing Mitch pictures probably for years, regardless.
You know, this is Mitch in the 2-minute drill, Nagy. You don't play conservative in the 2-minute drill going into the halftime tunnel when you got guy that has laser beam for eyes in the 2-minute drill. You know? he doesn't appreciate it. He doesn't appreciate it, but you know, it's all we can do is laugh at this point here on Brags in the Stands. It's sad, but what can we do? You know, I used to be a fan, you know, as a young fan in high school and maybe even a little out, would get all sauced up on the whiskey and I'd start breaking chairs or something just to vent my frustration through. Now we're in our 30s and we're here on podcasts, you know, drowning in our Bears sorrows. And maybe those days will turn one day, but not today. It's the same old for us Chicago Bears fans. The Bears fall once again, get blown out by the New Orleans Saints down in the Bayou to fall in the first round of the playoffs. The super wild card weekend, they had the game. I actually taped it on both the regular telecast, and then they also had it on the Nickelodeon telecast. Did you get a chance to check this out at all, Jake?
Because I did. Yeah, I watched a few first series of it. It was kind of boring. I saw the slime. You know, they had these like this cool stuff, but it was mostly after I think halftime. Replays. It wasn't too much in game that was happening.
I was wondering because it would be hard to do that stuff like right away. You know,
I thought it would be on like a really big delay and that they would be able to do some stuff, but it was pretty lockstep with the CBS broadcast. So, I'm sure it was fun for kids
because I was under the impression it was going to be the same announcers, over there. But
No,
it
it
was
was Nate Burleson and some other dude, and then like a kid, and there's two kids. There's a kid sideline reporter too, and they were explaining the game of football a lot during it too. So if you were a kid and you hadn't seen or you're not familiar with how football works, they were kind of explaining why things happened.
I'm so excited to show my daughter Addison this one day, but now they're going to explain the game of football, and they're going to be like, well, you see, Addison, the Bears are so terrible at this, and this is why.
Had to be the Bears, in the Nickelodeon game. They also slimed Sean Payton after the game.
They slimed Sean Payton after the game. Well, I know at one point, who got picked up on the hot mic was Cordero Patterson. It was like, what the fuck? Right to the ref. And I asked on Twitter if that got picked up on the Nickelodeon telecast.
It did.
And they said it did. So that's definitely.
They had to know that was possible. I mean, come on. You've seen there's no fans in the stands. Everything's been picked up on hot mics all year. So Nickelodeon, that one's on you.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We wanted better for today. I lost my bets. I fell to under 500 in the midway minute. So my fanboy delusions finally came back to haunt me. I was rocking and rolling to start the year on my picks. And then Chubb started infecting my brain because he knows he can pull at my heartstrings because I am a true fan and I want my team to win, even if it goes against what I think is best for the team. And like I said, we were all at this point, just about a month and a half ago. We were all in steadfast, step for step. I think even Chubbs probably could have admitted we would have all been fine after the Lions game if they had fired Pace and Nagy right there on the spot. But they didn't, and then they found their way into the playoffs, which creates this crazy dynamic. Yeah, it just creates a crazy dynamic because in a normal year or one less team in each conference, there's no way they would have made it. And then all that would have been of this season is another 8-8 season, 2 straight 8-8 seasons, followed off a 12-4 season. I mean, this 8-8
season means a lot more in the terms of you went 8-8, you recalculated, you made some coaching hires, you brought in some free agent contracts, you had another draft. You geared up for this. You brought in another quarterback. You made all the adjustments you thought you needed to make from 8-8 last year to improve on this year. And you went 8-8 again, including a 6-game lose streak, which you didn't have last year. So that should be a major indictment on everybody.
And 2019 included injuries to Mitchell Trubisky with no real backup quarterback. Akeem Hicks gets hurt in the London game, and the defense completely fell apart. After that, you could actually lean on those injuries maybe to a certain extent. But this season, it wasn't about injuries. It's about not understanding how to use your quarterbacks or not understanding the best way to run your offense, even if it does give you a smaller margin of error to win a game. That was your best chance of winning, was running their offense the way they did run it at the end of the year. So this year was more about mismanagement of who should play on your offensive line. You had all of 2019 to see that Rashad Coward wasn't fit.
Yeah, how many games do you need to see Rashad Coward out there to realize that anybody is probably better than this to mix it up? You had Alex Barrs at least. I understand Sam Musford came along, but it's like, dude, what? I'm not a brilliant mind, but I can see Rashad Coward getting blown up every single week. Why you keep trotting him out there?
Right. And that's on them, and the discipline's on them, the not using the right personnel in certain situations. I mean, how many times at the beginning of the year were they running that pitch to Cordero on 4th and 1? They stopped doing that, right? Well, then they started doing other dumb stuff on
let's see the wrecking null. Let me get some of that instead.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, Ryan Null on a pivotal down today, in the playoffs, that's the stuff where you're like, I had one guy that was tweeting at me, when I questioned whether Matt Nagy would go to Nick Foles in the 4th quarter, somebody tweeted at me all angrily, like I'm in control of all this because I'm a Mitch fan. No, let Mitch stay in there because he put us in this position so he can stay in there and live it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, the only reason they made the playoffs is because he played halfway decent against bad teams. So if that's what you're implying on, he put us there. If you're implying his bad play is the reason we're an 8-8 playoff team, well, yeah, we could be a better playoff team. Sure. If that's what you're going to blame him about. But then in today's game, how many different people made a mistake for being the reason why it wasn't a game in the third quarter? Yeah, of course, Mitch Trubisky can overcome you could say that about anybody. Do you think Tennessee Titans fans are going after Ryan Tannehill right now because he, didn't take over the game because other guys couldn't get it done? I mean, it's a team sport at the end of the day. Yeah, we all want that transcendent quarterback. I think every franchise in the league is striving to get that guy, but those guys don't grow on trees. So in the meantime, you do have to learn how to play winning.
Yeah, the Bears have never even had a 4,000-yard passer in their history. So
right. So
I mean, God.
Right. So we got some work to do here in Chicago. So it'll be interesting to see how that starts here immediately here this week here in the offseason. We thought maybe, it was going to be Black Monday last week at the end of the regular season, but somehow the Bears made it into the playoffs, and now we're back to square one. And I just think that, maybe you got your wish, Jake. Maybe we'll see. Maybe this was enough for it to come back to where we were prior to this winning streak. I do think the way it fell out in this way, and I couldn't have envisioned it because this team has just been so unpredictable week to week. Now that we're here, I do think there's an opportunity that George is kind of going where my mind is, and that once you start thinking about it and all the different variables and all the different scenarios on how it could lay out next year, wouldn't it just be easier to start fresh? I hope that that's where George, after his long, thoughtful, deep thought of should I keep Matt Nagy or not, I hope that's the conclusion he reaches. And I hope it's a tough phone call. And he's, I love you, Matt. You've done some great things for this organization. You've raised the expectations. You were a great leader of men. You can say whatever the hell you want, but I just think it's best that we cut ties. I'm a bricklayer. One time I worked for this guy that was the worst boss of all time, the absolute worst boss of all time. And I tried to stick it out with him as long as I could. And one day I just, at one point I just decided I needed to go to a different company because it was best for me. And so I had to give that tough phone call. Hey, nothing personal, man. You keep doing you, but I gotta go. And that's the tough decision that George McCaskey has to come to here. That's it. It's not an easy one. I understand, Matt. There's good things and that he brings to the table. There's good things that Ryan Pace brings to the table. But if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, then you're wiping the slate clean here. That's the final conclusion. There's no other. To me, you're just extending the inevitable.
Well, yeah, if they are brought back next year, I highly doubt it ends on any other way other than them getting fired anyway, because what they basically would need to do is try to get one of these free agent quarterbacks. Maybe it's Matt Stafford, maybe it's Phillip Rivers, maybe it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe it's Deshaun Watson, for whatever reason, even though that'd be very challenging.
Yep.
But it's like you basically have to get a but a quality free agent quarterback, because you're not in a position to draft high. If you could give up a lot of assets, but I think a lot of the teams that are drafting higher than you are okay giving up those assets too, because there's a lot of teams that needs quarterbacks. It just seems like you're going to be running back this squad with a new free agent quarterback. So yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Either a free agent or a rookie quarterback. And, maybe you get lucky and you get the next Russell Wilson and he's ready to go right away, but that's a huge risk. And I just think, Matt Nagy's going to have a tough time finding that guy. We'll see. It's a long way to go from there. We're going to be covering here, Brags in the Stands, free agency, draft coverage. We'll be doing different stuff leading up to those things, and we'll bring on some special guests that definitely have the mind for those things and can get us, a little more in line on who we should be looking at as far as guys the Bears should be picking up, and that's always an exciting time, hope springs eternal. So, when we get to the point of starting to build this team back up, we can start feeling better about this ball club. It's certainly not good enough. I know some guys will have their eyes on Dak Prescott, and yeah, it's, that's where it's at. So No, they have not cleaned house yet, but we are waiting word to see if they do. And if they do, at any moment this week, if they make an abrupt firing to Matt Nagy or Ryan Pace, I will do my best to go live as soon as it happens, and we'll see if Jake can join. He's got to work like a normal person. I'm taking a break right now. There's snow on the ground. It's cold up here in Northwest Indiana, so I've been off for a little bit watching the kiddo. So if there is any kind of breaking news in that kind of fashion this week, I will do my best to go live right away and give us instant reaction here at Brags and Stands. We're always trying to do some fun stuff in that way. So, I don't know. We can try to put a bow on this, Jake. It was a tough game, missed opportunities, but ultimately just a team not good enough to beat the New Orleans Saints down in the Superdome. So, as we've been talking about this week or this whole show, it may seem like maybe it's back to the clean house, mindset, and, maybe George McCaskey's there. Any final thoughts you have as far as, what you saw today, or Mitchell Trubisky or Matt Nagy or any of it, to fire away, my man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure. It's pretty disappointing because, like I said, I don't know what the direction is here. I don't know. I don't trust Ryan to make a quarterback decision for this team. I don't trust Nagy necessarily that he is the right offensive mind to take this team where it needs to go. I think, even there's, Chuck Pagano, I don't know that he's the right guy for this defense because there's so much talent there that's not being utilized. There's some tricky contracts you got to work around. This team's just in a really weird position, and it's going to take the right people to steer it in the direction it needs to go. I just don't know that they're on staff right now.
Yeah, it's hard to say, and I agree with you. So it'll be interesting. It's been a crazy year, and just not good enough. It's disappointing, crazy to not be able to go to the games and everything else. I do want to thank Kevin Kadick, our guy over there at the Midway Minute, the Chicago newsletter that any Chicago sports fan should be signing up for. This guy does really great work, and he covers all the Chicago teams. And if you sign up for his newsletter, it's a great start to your morning every day. And he was gracious enough to let me put my expert picks in each week and try to pick the Bears team. And for a little bit, I was at the top of the leaderboard as far as win-loss trajectory. And I was proud of that because I am a meatball Bears fan. I could have just picked them to win every week. So I tried to pick them on my gut, and my gut went under 500 this year, as did the Bears. We both finished the season 8-9 officially, if you count all the games, including this all-important playoff game, which I'm hoping George McCaskey puts a lot of stock into. And when you consider the lack of talent, compared to what the Saints are bringing, the lack of execution to the game plan on what Matt Nagy was doing or Mitchell Trubisky was doing, the lack of discipline that we saw with, Anthony Miller getting thrown out of the game, or, I even had the offsides flinches on crucial downs, cannot happen kind of stuff, even on a day when the defense had a great day. Those things fall on Matt Nagy. Those are all the things I'm looking at. And those are the reasons why I spent all day, this whole show talking about, let's just start fresh. It's the best way. And to me, that's where I'm at personally, but we'll see how they do. I don't think that they're going to. I think Matt Nagy will be here next year. And that's this, I don't know. I don't want to phrase it as disappointing, but personally, I would clean house. I'm not going to say that I'm making the right moves all day. I'm the one that, thought Mitch Trubiskey could work out here. So what do I know? But one day, Jake, we will get back to these playoff days where, we get to smile and have fun. This is when we could beat the Saints. And, guys didn't give us a chance in that game, but
yeah, and that's Rex Grossman beating the Saints.
Yeah, that's Rex, sexy Rexy, slinging it in the snow. And I know it snowed down in Austin, Texas for you today. I thought maybe
I got about 5 inches of snow. It's the most snow I've ever seen in my life here. I've seen snow 3 times in 6 years, and this is crazy.
Man, and it's almost crazier to see a Bears team winning an NFC championship to make it to the Super Bowl. And I can't wait to return to these days and get to that, Space Mountain, as Reuben Brown once called it, for this team. And we'll get there, guys. We will get there.
If these guys are coming back, and then Ryan Pace is coming back, and Matt Nagy is coming back, then the least that they could do would be to sit in front of the media and answer some hard questions, and hopefully the media gives them hard questions and they explain what their process is going forward, because right now I don't know what their plan is, and they need to have something better to speak on than what Nagy just talked about, because that was not acceptable to me personally.
Yeah, it wasn't. But that's Matt for you. Always glass half full kind of guy. So not acceptable, but we will see what George
At least
McCaskey.
be bummed you got bounced from the playoffs. He seemed fine.
Yeah, a little weird, no doubt, but we'll see what George McCaskey and Virginia have to say here coming up. But I do want to thank everybody this tuning in. We've had a lot of live listeners sticking out for the whole show. I want to thank those people, all our loyal listeners and viewers that have been hanging out with us all season long, for our first Brags in the Stands Bears season. Everybody's always kind of gotten to know me on the Bears Twitter streets from the Bears coverage I bring to you in the stands, and we're hoping for the 2021 season that we're able to do that. And I'll tell you what, if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far here at Brags in the Stands, it is only gonna get better once I'm able to return to the games and start harassing guys right there in the stands, directly right there for you. If you want me to say something to them, I'll be able to do it, because we'll be back and better than ever in the stands, and hopefully the Bears will be back and better than ever. But we're going to keep having fun in the offseason. We're not stopping here.
We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we got lots of offseason Bears stuff to get to. Finding out what George McCaskey is going to do with the GM and head
this next
coach.
week's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, this next week's going to be pivotal for the Bears, so we're not going anywhere. And we also got, of course, free agency and the draft coverage that'll be coming up. So make sure you stay on the lookout for that. And then I am also going to be pivoting and transitioning to basketball coverage. I'm a big Big Ten fan. I love Purdue basketball. Obviously, we had Sasha Stefanovic on earlier this season, and that was a lot of fun. And so I'm going to get into some Big Ten basketball. Yeah, we got Bulls out there, a little bit of a resurgence. And then, yes, baseball right around the corner. Of course, the Cubs look like they're rebuilding, and the White Sox are on their way to a championship. And our guy, Johnny B., who, of course, will be still in football mode for a few weeks. Looking at
in the Super Bowl,
another Super Bowl in his sights for Johnny B. And I'm sure we'll still be talking about the upcoming playoff matchups in the NFC Championship, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, the whole thing. We will be here for that stuff. I do want to say, and this is a little bit of a breaking news for Jake too, but coming up on Wednesday night, I am going to be having a special IU Purdue show. So I know Jake's an IU alum. I'm a Purdue fan, so we're going to be having some fun here. I'm excited for IU Purdue, excited to get into some other coverage outside of football, and I hope all you guys can continue to join here, because we'll still be talking football and everything else. But that'll be a basketball special, so tune in if you'd like. And then, again, want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Of course, Jacoby, thank you for all your time and this season, putting all your hard work here at Brags in the Stands. Means a lot, man. You've been killing it, and pretty cool to chop it up, talk Bears with you after each game, like we used to back in the day. And now we get to do it here, with our brethren here and all our friends hanging out in the chat. Chubb's giving us crap. So, again, thank you to everybody. I know I'm taking forever to wrap it up, but I just want to thank everybody. It's been a lot of fun in this first year, and really feel like we've hit our stride, and we've got some places where we can really blow up and grow. So excited for everybody to join along in the ride with us. So that being said, for the final time, my guy Money Mitch, I'm gonna miss you, buddy. You were fun, but it's time to roll. We're gonna see who else we can bring here.
Time to move on. And hey, that's exciting. That's exciting to see what this team is going to be completely different next year, and that is exciting. Let's just hope people making those decisions are the right ones.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all Bears fans, and we just want to see what's best. So hopefully we can find our own Patrick Mahomes. So again, before I talk to the end of the music.
Oh, it's about to happen. I'll extend it for you.
Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen. We got some more fun stuff, and we'll see what George McCaskey brings. But for Jake, I'm Greg. Bears are done, but we're never done here at Brags in the Stands. Have a good night. Have a good night. Enjoy your playoffs. Take it easy. Bear down.